If you invest in stocks or crypto, then you must have seen blood all over your portfolio. But don't worry, guys, it's not you, it's them. Indices globally have been falling since the start of this year. And the worst part is, this might not be it. Experts are anticipating that the markets will fall even further. And that's the topic for today, guys. In this video, we'll be discussing the reasons behind this slump and what you can do as a smart investor. Let's go. First, and the obvious reason is the hike in interest rates. In the US, the inflation rose at a 40-year high, and that's why the Fed intervened and increased the interest rates to control the inflation. An increase in the interest rates means that it will be more expensive to borrow money, which means that people will now take less loans. The demand for goods and services will decrease, because of which the prices will also go down in the future. Even in India, the RBI increased the repo rate and the cash reserve requirements so that they can control the inflation. However, in India, the inflation is not as bad as in the US. This is probably the first time where the inflation in a developed country is more than the inflation in a developing country. The inflation in US was at around 8.5%, while in India it is currently at 7.5%. This is absurd and unbelievable. Earlier, the Fed's zero interest rate drove much of the stock market's growth, and today, because of increasing the repo rate, the stock market is getting hampered. When interest rates are effectively zero, investors sought risky bets, because if the cost of borrowing is low, then the cost of lending will be low, and that's why fixed deposits, bonds, and every other debt instruments interest rates have gone down in the last 2 years. That's why people had no other option but to invest in the stock market. But as soon as the interest rates went up, फिक्स्ड डिपॉजिट्स, डेट, ये सारे चीजों के भी इंटरेस्ट रेट्स इवेंचुअली बढ़ जाएंगे. फिर बाद में जो रिस्क का जो डिफरेंस होगा ना, मतलब स्टॉक मार्केट के रिस्क लेके लेट्स से हमें 10% मिलता है और एफडी में सिर्फ 5% मिलता है, देन द डिफरेंस इज 5%. लेकिन अगर फिक्स्ड डिपॉजिट में आपको 7% मिल रहा है और स्टॉक मार्केट में 10% मिल रहा है, देन द डिफरेंस इज जस्ट 3%. एंड अ लॉट ऑफ इन्वेस्टर्स माइट थिंक दैट दिस इज नॉट वर्थ द एडिशनल रिस्क. The second reason is the supply chain disruptions. Ever since the pandemic started, there have been massive global supply chain issues. A shipping container which could earlier be shipped from China to North America at $5,000 is now costing roughly $15,000 for importers. This high cost of imports is also adding to the inflation, especially in heavy import industries. One of the major supply chain shortages which started from COVID and is still prevalent is that of chips and semiconductors. When I say supply chain, I mean the entire process from production to the use of product by the end user and everything in between. Logistics is a major part of the entire supply chain. Supply chain is something that has gotten worse even as the world recovers from the pandemic. And that brings me to the third point: Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russia is a commodities powerhouse, producing and exporting huge amounts of materials the world uses to build cars, transport people and goods, make bread, and keep the lights on. A crucial portion of the world's wheat, corn, and barley is trapped in Russia and Ukraine because of the war, while an even larger portion of the world's fertilizers is stuck in Russia and Belarus. The result is that global food and fertilizer prices are soaring. In fact, in the last 1 year, food prices in rural India have almost doubled. That's really concerning because the average GDP per capita in these rural areas is not very high. So a sudden influx in the prices will be very, very painful for everyone living there. Other than that, Russia is also a huge supplier of a specific type of nickel used in EV batteries. Countries like Turkey, Japan, and China depend a lot on Russia for aluminium. It is also the second largest producer of metals like palladium, platinum, third largest steel producer, and the largest exporter of thermal to many European countries. Above all, they are the second largest exporter of crude oil, and countries like Germany, Poland, and Hungary depend on refined oil transported and supplied by Russia for their daily use. Now, because of the war, Russia is facing heavy economic sanctions. इन सारे चीजों का शॉर्टेज चल रहा है और उसके वजह से प्राइसेस और भी ज्यादा बढ़ गए हैं. The last reason is our neighbor China. Recently, China saw another major break of COVID cases in cities like Shanghai, and the government decided a total lockdown of all these cities. Now, China is a manufacturing giant. There is a reason why we call it the world's factory. If China stops producing goods, it affects the entire world. This has further contributed to the dangling supply chain. Now, what should you do as a smart investor? Benjamin Graham says that the intelligent investor is a realist who sells to optimists and buys from pessimists. Currently, the entire market sentiment is extremely negative. Institutional investors, retail investors, so many people are selling their stocks just just to get out of this market and avoid further losses. But guys, this is the best time to buy additional stocks and decrease the average cost of your portfolio. However, buying the dip works 100% only if you are buying the entire market. अगर आप इंडिविजुअल स्टॉक्स के हर डिप को खरीदते हो तो कोई भी गारंटी नहीं है कि उस पर्टिकुलर स्टॉक में आगे जाके आपको रिटर्न्स मिलेगा. फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर आप पेटीएम के हर डिप में खरीद रहे हो तो फिर कोई गारंटी नहीं है कि आगे जाके आप पैसा बनाओगे, क्योंकि अगर पेटीएम कभी 500, 600, 700 के ऊपर गया ही नहीं, then how would you as an investor make returns on that stock? So the best way to invest in such a market is by buying the entire market or investing in a diversified portfolio, either by investing in a mutual fund or by creating a well balanced portfolio by your own or by consulting a financial advisor and taking their opinion. जब सेल होता है तो लोग ज्यादा कपड़े खरीदते हैं, जब लोन के रेट कम होते हैं तो लोग ज्यादा घर खरीदते हैं, तो फिर जब मार्केट में स्टॉक्स सस्ते में मिल रहे हैं तब भी तो ज्यादा ही खरीदना चाहिए ना. आज के लिए इतना है दोस्तों. If you found this valuable, then please hit the like button. If you are new here, then consider subscribing. This is Anshuman and I'll see you guys in the next one.